and welcome to Manned Up Conversations, where we connect with evolving men to discuss issues around masculinity and manhood, and also provide tools to help us be better for our society.
To not do the work that is required for you to get better. Yeah, how? Yeah. Yes, olilao nelo trap. And maybe olilao nelubshaba or tamalao nelubshaba, maybe they had their issues and those issues have impacted you and have led to be the broken individual that you are now. Ukhrod, what are you doing about it? You, wenzani?
Sure.
It's your life again. So you must be accountable. You see, people don't want to be accountable. Don't want to sit and look in the mirror and go, ayazi, engnejayo. And then you look at why upeta and you're like, okay, because maybe so.
Okay, man. Quite always exciting. I think you must help me with a new word, man.
A new word for exciting.
For exciting, yeah.
Invigorating.
Okay.
No. Let me see. I don't know how to exciting.
Exciting. Well, hey, exciting. For lack of a better word, it is. I think we'll coin that. We'll call it Manned Up Exciting. Because like literally every episode, I'm excited to do this. But it's because I love what I do.
Yeah, no, nothing wrong. If we're excited, we're excited.
Man, this is actually us coming full circle, because this is the first one that we're doing. A repeat episode with someone that we had.
Okay, that's cool.
So this is very cool.
That's exciting.
That's exciting. And also because you were, as I said in the previous episode that we did, you were one of the first guys that I wanted to interview. It gives me pride and honor to do it again.
I'm also honored to be here, man.
But man, and you're doing something amazing, because when we finished the last episode, we were talking about you're doing some moves, man. You want to get into this business thing. You want to start a food truck. But now the food truck has now evolved into something else. And we were supposed to do an episode at the food truck, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So now we're at the Gogo Magic Family Eatery, man. Out in, this is not Brighton, this is Douglasdale?
Four ways. Yeah.
Okay.
4 ways, yeah.
So welcome to the show again, man.
Thank you, my brother. I am excited to be back on your show. Yeah, man, it's an honor.
Ah, man. So tell us a bit about the spot, man. I mean, we have to get into the controversy a bit, because you were at Foy's Farmers Market.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, if you remember, as you've mentioned, when we last spoke, I said to you I wanted to get into the food business, and my intention was to create a spot for African families.
Sure. And
the insight there was that spots that sell African food are not family friendly. So it's either kirishisa nyama, or if they're not music spots, they're quite serious and staid. So if you take your children there, your children don't have a good time, right? And I like shisa nyama as much as the next guy, but if I want to be with my children, you're then forced to go to places that serve maybe food that you don't want to have at that time. Sure. So it's about giving people who, like myself, love Dijo Tsakasi, that option. It's an option. It's not to say other people's offerings are wrong or anything like that, but it's giving us that kind of option. So when I last spoke to you, I spoke about a food truck, and the food truck was always going to be what's called an MVP, minimum viable product, right? Or how do I test this thing out without putting in too much money to see how it works? I mean, I had never worked in food before. So we ran the truck for a year. We started Cedar Square. Yeah, it was a spot called Action Park. And then that park itself, that land was bought. They turned it into something else, so we had to move. And that's when we moved to go for Foy's Farmers. We thought it was going to work out. The aspects of it that worked, the aspects that didn't work. Mara, it's for us, Gogo Magic Family Eatery, the name says it, family eatery. And our food is amazing. I've got amazing chefs. The team is amazing. But for me, I would not be in this business if it was just about the food.
Sure.
You know, for me, it's about the African family experience. An oasis, a place where African families can be, and a space where that is designed with us in mind, not a space where we are tolerated.
Sure.
You know, so that's the thinking.
Yeah. And I love your thinking because you're somewhat of an activist, man. whenever I listen to even reading your commentary on social media, I was listening to a podcast you did with Kojo as well. I forgot the name of the podcast, but shout out to the work that he's doing. There's
in your footsteps or something.
Yeah, something about footsteps. But we'll link that in the show notes as well. But there's a love that comes across, man, in everything you involve yourself in. You know, you don't just do things for the sake of, hey, I just need to feed my pockets.
No. You know, and I think that's the challenge that we're facing as a country, as a society, but it's also even bigger than us. It's a global problem. But I think to start here where we are, so many of us think about ourselves and our immediate needs.
Yeah.
And that's not to say our immediate needs are not real. They are, right? However, you're not solving anything. You are just putting a plaster on a wound, but you're not dealing with the wound. You're not healing anything.
Sure.
Yes, you have to put food on the table. But if you can think beyond just when, you know, amazingly, you still get to put food on the table, but you do so much more, right? And I think another problem that we're facing, and it's all in the same line as a people, as a society, is short-termism.
Yeah.
You know, we're not thinking 100 years. You know, we're not thinking, you know, there's that expression that you plant a tree whose shade you will never enjoy.
Exactly.
We're not thinking like that, by and large. Obviously, I'm generalizing. I'm not speaking for everybody, you know. But for me, it's that, right? It's like, okay, the gifts that I've been given, which are creative thought, drive, you know, but I still go in. Writing. How can I use those to make a difference beyond just feeding myself and my family? And that's how I approach my life. I mean, I always say, everything that I do, I want to come up with solutions that inspire Africans, you know, touch Africans, inspiring harmony, prosperity, and the celebration of this wonderful continent and her eclectic peoples, right? And I sum it up by saying creativity will save us all. You know, so we need ideas and solutions, but not just for ourselves. Yeah.
I love it, man. And you mentioned something again. I want to go back to something you said in your previous point, where you started small. When we all have these big ideas, and for some reason, because the idea is so grand, we think of, hey, when I have the 1 million or 3 million, 5 million, we don't think of, no, let me just start with like just some sweets nyana kunku.
No,
you know,
definitely.
5 loaves of bread and create nyana ya cold drink, then I'll start something. You know?
Yeah.
So how's that kind of like shown you? I guess also helped you with like a bit of resilience, right? Across the journey. Yeah.
You know, it's. I used to have that problem, Linda, of overwhelming myself. By looking at the problem in its entirety. And then there was a period when I went into counseling, and my counselor was more of a life coach. And one of the things we dealt with was precisely that. She was saying to me, why do you deal with problems at a grand scale, right? Just look at, you know, so in fact, I think at some point I needed X amount of money to solve something. And she said to me, why don't you break it down to how much you would need to make a day to get to that amount. So if you're looking at, just going to throw a rough amount, if you're looking at 200,000 a month, that's going to overwhelm you, right? If you're looking at opening a restaurant, that's going to overwhelm you, right? So if you take 200,000 a month, you break it down to daily, you know, my mathematics is non-existent, so I wouldn't know what that figure is, but let's say that figure comes to, what is it?
About 2,000.
So let's say maybe you say, maybe you forget weekends, right? So you say, let's deal with midweek days. So let's say it's 20 days. So it's 10K a month. So you go, a day. So you say, how can I make 10K today? Do you understand? Even though, yes, making 10K a day is a lot, But your brain can go, okay, I can process making 10K better than I can process making 200K.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So for me as well, with this thing is starting Gogo Magic Family Eatery, it was that. Say, okay, I can deal with the food truck and then we take it from there. But also with contributing and playing a role in our society, it's precisely that, right? Or you know what? In my little corner, I can do this. You know, because we overwhelm ourselves. You're like, oh man, who am I?
Sure.
You know, what difference can I possibly make? But if you go, you know what? I'm going to write a book. And in this book, I'm going to put some ideas in it.
Sure.
If 3 people buy this book, and out of those 3, 1 absorbs some of these ideas, I've done something. That one person is going to go off. That's my role.
Sure.
That's my contribution.
Sure.
So I think it's important to stop overwhelming ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, no, man. I love that idea because also, I guess we always externalize things.
Yeah.
We thinking, man, when I'm just writing. Now suddenly, man, KG podcast, we're talking about it. Like people are watching, or hey, these people. But there's someone who's actually like, hey, this thing is making a huge impact in my life. You know?
That is it.
Man, so let's now move to Ubuntu. I always like bringing this up because there's various layers to it, right? And certain people will say it's non-existent. But like you saying, that's Ubuntu for me.
Yeah.
Right? And spaces that are culturally appropriate, so to speak.
Yes.
But Harit Okukasi, and then we come here, then there's a sort of something that happens. We lose like some, I don't know, man, a touch of Ubuntu, you know, even though we'll come to a place like this, and that, but we're not neighborly. You said something earlier before we recorded, if you are a single man or you're a single person, people will probably point fingers at you. Hey, something wrong with that man. What's going on there? Right? They don't understand it. But whereas in the suburbs, no one really looks into that. So that neighborliness, So how do you think we can build that, you know, and using your space in that perspective?
Look, you know, it's a tricky one for me because I'm not sitting here saying I have all the answers.
Sure.
I'd be lying if I did say that. However, in terms of just being, you know, interested in each other, you know, for me, it's about that, right? Firstly, it's about being interested in each other, right? Because everyone, funny enough, everyone has an interesting story, right? So, but the problem when is internal first, right? See, we're speaking about Ubuntu, but if when as Umuntu, you don't like yourself, you haven't dealt with who you are, what you are about, what Ubuntu are you going to have? So what's happening is that we are so focused, in my view, we are so focused on external and material and all of these things and chasing achievement. We call it achievement, but chasing status, material, this, that, that we ourselves are empty inside. Right? Which is why we don't have time for the next person. I just want to have this. I want to have that. I want to have this. But if you stopped and you said, you know what? How do I work on myself? Who am I? You know, what am I about? You know, once you start doing that, you will slow down. You know, you breathe. And then you start looking outside. You know, then you'll start seeing other people. But you need to start with yourself. And I mean, I'm going to use a cliche. When they say when your cup is empty, how are you going to fill somebody else's? And I think from Zanzi right now, a lot of us are operating empty cups because we are not seeking to fill them. We color our cups. We put stickers on them, and by stickers I will mean cars, fancy houses, this, that. But the cup is empty. The cup remains empty. All these other things, adornments around the cup, do not fill the cup. And if your cup is empty, what do you have to offer anybody else?
And especially for Machita, because status means a lot to us, right?
Look, you know, I yes, there's that, but I mean, the reality is, you know, the forces that shape us as Majita. There are some specific things that are specific to us, but they're shaping everyone, right?
Sure.
I mean, I think women are facing similar challenges, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, just that those challenges manifest differently.
Sure.
We do different things. I mean, I might get smacked for what I'm about to say now, but negichala outing, you know, Banyanaba who get called slave queens. Libashimani by the heist. It's exactly the same human being.
Okay.
It's the same human being, just using different weapons. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
It's the same people who want material at whatever cost. It's the same human being, just that they approach it very differently.
Sure.
And you hear me, I say, Banyana Baba Butwang, the slave queen. You know, I don't like to use that kind of language myself, condemn about, because you don't know someone's reality and how they arrived at that. But what I am saying is that as a society right now, rheumatics are wrong. And since rheumatics are wrong, we remain empty within ourselves. And so how can you talk to me about Ubuntu when I haven't dealt with Umuntu? You know?
Man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. And everything that we do, as I won't call myself a fruit man, but you know, now I'm getting people calling me sir. Like, maybe it's because of the stuff I talk about.
Perhaps.
Or maybe fruit. And I must just accept it.
Exactly.
But I am growing and maturing, you know, in different ways.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it when I talk to my nephews, for example. I always use them as sort of my, can I call it a yardstick? Okay, there's this progression, you know, there's growth and stuff that I'm talking about. There's an impact on the youth that we're having. With the lifestyles that we're choosing, Lebo Slave Queen Barona, and you know, cheese boy, who, I don't want to say this word, but sure, fuck boy Barona and that. You know? So how are you in your space, in your capacity, as a leader in your business? How are you motivating youth, not just Kospani? Because a lot of time we look at mentoring and motivation as like, no, but in terms of being a good person, you know, how are you doing that?
Look, for me, I use the tools that I have. One being writing. You know, if you remember how we first met, my book Magenge, we need to talk. It's still out there. People are still buying it. I'm still getting feedback from Batu, you know, positive and negative, some aspects, some people don't like, whatever. But for me, now, I use the tools that I have. And the one tool is just writing. Now I've gotten into children's books, you know. And in my books, I always touch on issues that matter. So for instance, in this first one that I published, Gogo Magic and a Magic Food Truck, there it was around empathy. You know, compassion, right? Consideration of the next person. Yeah. Which is something, again, it goes back to Ubuntu, which is something that is lacking. And what I speak of here specifically is this book, I've written it from the perspective of a middle-class black father dealing with his middle-class black children and helping them understand, when you see poor black people, understand how that came to be. Because you know, some of the challenges that we're facing right now, as you're saying, you know, we're becoming middle class, if that thing is even real. Even our own children now look at poorer black people and assume, no, it's because they are lazy, it's because it's this and that, without understanding how the system was designed to create that reality for some people. You know, so we need that compassion, that empathy. So for now, I use writing, right? But I also use any opportunity that I get to talk to younger men in conversation. I think where I'm fortunate is that I can talk to Majita in Sjita, you know, so I don't lecture. I am not a priest. I am not a psychologist. I'm not a counselor. Get out, you know. And also, I'm able to share my journey, where I've been, what I've gone through, and some of these youngsters that I'll talk to, but realize, hey, Tamale Khalil, fuck up, you know. But when we look at little Tamale can turn around and think the way he's thinking now maybe Lynn.
Sure.
You know, because I also think what happens is a lot of the time we feel that we are prisoners to the things that we have done. And we feel that we cannot change. In fact, even the people around us want to hold us to that, you know.
Yeah.
I remember when I started deciding and looking at my life, I started telling people, don't call me Mshingaiwan. You know, I was like, Damani nang Kenya Masipi. Mshingaiwan leads me astray.
Sure.
So I refuse. And what's key that when is taking a decision about who you are. You see, and deciding for actually the house.
Sure.
You know, and I'm not saying that's what everyone should do, but you look at, you go, okay, the house used to do X, Y, and Z, and I completely denounce that, whatever that is, and I am Khauge, right? I'll give you an example. When I decided to stop drinking, you know, I mean, I used to love spins.
Sure.
I think, yes, it was my thing.
I know. Well, we had a very good meeting. It was supposed to be an hour. And then,
exactly.
Sure.
I had shaped my life around spins, you know.
Wow.
And then when I decided I decided to even be deliberate with the language I use in relation to that. You know, I didn't say hakesana. Like when someone says to me, here's a beer. You know, I don't say hakesana. I say hakenwe.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
Because I now identify as a non-drinker. Not someone who's attempting to stop. Hakenwe. You know. So what I'm speaking to is that the person that you say you are forces you to be that person.
Sure.
Right? When you say, if you wake up and you say, I am health conscious, then your brain goes, okay,
sure.
So let's do those things. If you say, hey, kapshaba, your brain goes, okay, arlo pshab. If you go, hey, na, hey, keshaban, your brain goes, okay, arlo tolaban. So for me, those are the kinds of things that I like to talk to, and like I say, in very informal environments. If I just happen to find myself and also you listen to other people's stories, because there are people who've gone through their own journeys, you know, and there are people who are fine in their lives who don't need to change anything. You know, so it's also skaspitela batho, unso rerela batho da. Just because some people are fine, you know what I mean? Some people had their shit together all along. And others, in your view, might not have their shit together. Bashapu. They don't want to change. And so, you know what I mean? I mean, it's like, you know, one of my pet peeves, one of the things I dislike a lot, unsolicited advice.
Sure.
You know, it's like infeta home, you know, see,
now, sure.
Yeah, so I think it's also important for in your bid to share or in your path to growth to just you know, if people want to hear what you have to say, cool, but
hey man, I love that perspective, because I was actually at a funeral just the other day and we're chilling with some guys. You know, there's always banter.
Yeah.
And you know, some really sensitive topic came up, and hey, I'm sitting there. They're like, "Hey, when are you better not go talk about this on the podcast?" So I'm like, "How, gents? But why would you think I'm gonna do that?"
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm not here as a podcaster here. Like, I'm just a guy. In fact, that's work I do. Separate from that. If you want us to have that conversation, then now by all means, let me know. We can have it, man. I'll buy the drinks and we can sit somewhere and have the exchange. So I do agree. Sometimes we also, I guess it's in our culture, man. Everyone is kind of being positive and you feel like you need to rub off on the next person. I also hate that.
Yeah, it's like, just hold on, homie.
Yeah, like, yo, let me be, man. You know, I'm just here to chill.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, if I want to hear from you. But for now, obviously, I mean, if you know you're in a friendship, and we're born out here, I don't think you should always take that stance. You know, you should try and be like, listen. I mean, there's a friend of mine. He was doing something and he born out, and I said to him, born out, I'm going to say this once, because I allow me to speak once, and then if you never want to talk about this again, we'll never talk about this ones again. Again, any Arashapo, Raibuan, Rafael Lamu, Arsobuikayona ever again.
Sure.
Because it's not my place. Ultimately, it's not my life. Yeah.
Man, give your guys some room, man. And we under the microscope that we're under right now, you know. And guys just don't want to hear it, man. Like I've heard enough, man. You know, so please, guys, you know, create the space. I always say, when you go to someone and you need advice, give them fair warning. You know, don't just come drop bombs on Nika 7 saying, I'm like, hey, this person, like, dude, I'm not even thinking, I'm not even on that. Maybe I would say, well, I'm in my own sorrows, you know. So let's also create space for you know.
Yeah, and except we're also our personalities are not the same. Like, and those are things we don't take into account.
No, we don't.
You know, we're not homogenous. We are all so different and we take things differently. And like you're saying, you don't know my state of mind at the time. You know?
No, we don't.
Oh, you don't know why I made that decision. And that's my problem with unsolicited advice. You know so much, but you want to advise me. Whereas you don't even know why I did that thing.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Maybe if we're Tiaga, let's sit and ask me, you know, go for context.
Sure.
And then we take it from there.
Sure.
Maruska close Pete and and even in my book, man, if you remember, Magenge, we need to talk. I'm very apologetic. You know? I'm like, if I does it,
I play.
But now we take it. So you can't blame me. But it can be too much.
Man, I love it. And it's a personal one, man.
Yeah.
Just like this podcast, you know, I don't at all. I actually never introduce myself as someone who does this. If you by chance find it and sure, let's do it. And it's not only about the podcast, man. Just everything in life.
No, general.
Just literally, guys. Just have decency, have compassion. Don't just be all about it's my time to give advice or it's my time in my sorrows and I just want everyone to be and go down.
It
doesn't work.
That's true. And there's a lot of that, right? Like you're saying, everyone right now, the expert, you know, everyone motivator. And that's why, in fact, you know, Magenge, we need to talk, but I don't get into that circuit. That's a motivator, I'm not that guy.
If you get invited, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I know myself. You know, I've been in situations, of course, spanning where they invite us, and now we must listen to some guy. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, let's try that.
And with all due respect.
So it's that. And I think we need to understand who approach about.
I love it, man. And we can go on all day about that. But there's also something that really interests me about you. You actually mentioned it on the podcast in the beginning.
Okay.
That you align your work with, you want to give back like you will into, you know? But then at the same time, there's a challenge that comes with that. Is you don't necessarily make you even said it in those words, or you would have made way more money if you weren't a person who works on values. You know, you don't just want to do stuff for the sake of
look, Nubu is extremely important. So let's just get that straight, right? However, it's not the only thing. So what I'm trying to find right now is the balance, right? Doing the things that I love doing, doing the things that make a difference, and making money from them. I wonder if I can find a way to make those three things align. For me, that would be the sweet spot, right? So if you're and you're like, here's this project and we're going to make X amount, and I look at it and I think, I'm going to have a miserable time doing this thing, I'm going to walk away, man. Do you know what I mean? I've walked away and I will still walk away, right? Or if I see writing in some way, I walk away, right? However, if we can find, and the thing about it is that because of the nature of our country, because of the challenges that our country faces, there are many opportunities for social entrepreneurship.
Sure.
Trying to make money, and then to put it in simple terms, by solving some of the challenges that our people face, right? So if I'm looking at this one, it's not a physical challenge, it's a philosophical one, the one that I'm trying to deal with Gogo Magic Family Eatery, which is spaces for black families, right? That's a challenge, and it's a philosophical one, it's a spiritual one, but I'm also running a business, right? So, Erogo Chile, you know, and I'm seeing the kids on the jumping castle, and I'm seeing their parents sitting there. Olidi atwere skopo, timer maybe litwere mangina, the older brother atwere kota. Oh man, I feel amazing. Do you know what I mean? For me, I am satisfied. You know, yeah, my soul feels fulfilled. That, you know what I mean? So that's the sort of thing that I enjoy, right? When someone says to me, "Hey Muna," you know, there was a guy, I bumped into him, a guy that I know well. We're not friends, but we know each other well. And then he said to me, "Hey Muna, you know, on my way to child maintenance court, somehow as I was leaving the house, I decided to pick up Magenge, we need to talk. You know, and I took it with me to court because, you know, go court, you wait. You know, you don't just arrive, okay? And as I was sitting there, I started reading your book. I'd had it for months. I hadn't read it, and I started reading it. I remember, you know, there was a section where you were speaking about, and then what? You know, you make that. You know, he went there with a particular intention and attitude. Go maintenance court. Arnalo kur. When he read that section, and he was like, and then what? And then what's Allah? And for me, it's that stuff. You know, when someone tells me that, it's one individual.
Man.
You know, I'm like, hey, man. You know, also it's embarrassing sometimes. You know, Chaka, as for Chaka, Madam Claire, but it's that. You know what I mean? For me, it really is that. Even in my other life as a partner in an ad agency, as a creative leader in that organization, you know, I try, obviously within the parameters of the strategy and the objectives of our clients, but I try and do work that is meaningful, that satisfies us, you know, as a team. Once we've done that, we go, yeah, I'm happy that I did that, right? And so for me, that's very important.
I love it. And there's something also that, you know, we're in Women's Month right now, and I'm sure by the time this comes out, it will be just after, but it's still within range, right?
Yeah.
I've always gotten compliments or interest in what I'm doing from women.
Okay.
And also interesting from your book. I've had a lot of women say, hey man, we heard this episode, Magenge. We saw this book, we posted it on your Instagram. Like, we want to read more about it. We want to know more. So I feel like women want to understand us a lot more. And through these channels, you said writing, stuff that's very personalized. You know? It's not like we look at some conference.
No, sure.
That's a whole different story. But if it's personalized, because it forces you now to think, hey, okay, I never saw things like this. You now have to confront yourself and your beliefs based on someone else's ideas.
Yes.
So I see that, but then I also look at your life, or your influence mostly comes from your mom, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at people who are raised by mothers, they say, well, research says, we come across with a very different perspective on things, like life yamuji. I'm sure you might have gone through the toxicity that people call toxic masculinity and all of that. But then there's positive stuff that you got from Boma Oledi, Boma Gogo. So as how do you think that influence Ama Oledi kind of made you see things different from other guys?
You know, I can't say it helped me see things different from other guys because I don't know how those guys necessarily see things. But I mean, for me, for a long time, because Olidlaga was extremely strict and deeply religious. So for a long time, negligently rebellious. You know, I rebelled against the law lady. In fact, I rebelled against female authority of any kind. Even in relationships, nigga struggle because I start mutanchal and get nango munye foot. You know, right? So there was that, and that is not a function of Oledi. That is a function of me, right? But I think now, you know, as I'm getting older and I'm just introspecting a bit more and I'm looking at life a bit more, I do realize the way I was raised by a lady shaped me a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, how it shaped me was some of the guilt, kind of things that I would do. So I would go and do things. You know, but I've got this upbringing at the back of my head. Yeah. And when those two things get together, now I'm alone again. Sure. Now I'm sitting alone with myself and the programming from home. Sure. Now I feel miserable, you know, and guilty and good. What the hell was that? And so with time, I have gone back to being the son that my mother raised with the kind of values that she raised me with. And I don't know if it's got to do with her being a woman per se, or just that's my parent who had that kind of worldview. But where her specifically, where it's impacted me, is now this thing, Yaka, you know, with interest in family and seeing and wanting to see black families thrive and do well. Because through the struggles, you know, she was a single mom who left Skela, Koboma Standard 8, and became a domestic worker. But through all of that, she was an amazing mother through the struggles. I mean, you know, just to digress a bit, I always say to Machita specifically, because that's who I spend most of my time with, Machita. You know, look at how we are struggling now as parents. We make more money than our parents could ever fathom. And there's no apartheid. We are raising our children in democracy.
Sure.
Imagine what our parents were going through. Right? So for me, that has also given me a new appreciation for my mother.
Sure.
You know, you know, somehow saying say private school. Somehow, you know what I mean? And that encourages me to do more for my children, but not only for my children, for people.
Sure.
Right? Sure. And try and be there for people. So yes, my mother has been, even though I rebelled against it for a long time, she has been an influential force in my life. And I think now at this age, obviously a lot of it also probably has to do with age. I mean, later this year, it's 46, you know, to get time.
Yeah, no, I know so look what
no, get time, you know, and I'm able to look at those lessons and take them quite differently. Even in Magenge, when you to talk, I always say when I wrote that book because I wish some of the things that are in that book, I had gotten access to them at a much younger age, and my life wouldn't been so chaotic. But at the same time, I don't live with regret. Sure. Besides, all that stuff that happened has led to me being me now, and sitting across the table talking to you and having the insight that I have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it, man. So there's a video that we shared in the men's group that we run, or that I'm also part of. I don't like saying that we run it. I'm part of it. So, there's a thing that we say, or we blame our parents, or they should have taken me here, or they didn't support me with this skiing. But man, they took you to school. You know, there are other things that they did for you. Yeah. So we always highlight the things that our parents didn't do. But then the things that they did, it's like, because maybe a friend of mine, and it's like those things.
Yeah.
So how do you see that appreciating our parents, man? As you say, my old lady went through all of those struggles. Where not today, but then you're still struggling either way.
Yeah.
So how can we appreciate that? I know you covered it in what you just said.
Look, I honestly think that's just silly, to be honest. And old enough to understand what life is panaya, right? And I'm going to be frank, it's silly. So if you are able to look at the circumstances that the parents now, and also, you know what, you know. So what must happen? I didn't know. Yes, that happened. Terrible.
Sure.
And if you have childhood trauma, man, go to counseling. You know, and deal with it.
Sure.
Right now,
sure.
parent.
Sure.
Parent, and also take lessons from that. to treat your children maybe with more compassion. Maybe your parents were too hard on you. So don't say, hey, now I was raised hard and look, I turned out right. Therefore, I'm going to raise my children the same way. No, you didn't turn out right. Right? That's why I'm not natural. So let's take lessons, but let's forgive our parents. And sometimes there's not even a reason to forgive. It's that thing. Yeah, lack of accountability. You are 36. So you are about regular cocks. Do you know what has happened? How many things have happened since? And I'm saying, I'm not dismissing the things that happened really bad impact us even now. What are you doing about that? Are you doing the internal work? We're empty inside. So a lot of us are not doing the internal work, right? And a big reason for that, yes, there's sometimes money issues where you can't afford a counselor, but kuna lead social worker, and also they are just, I wouldn't call them cultural issues. You know that the word cultural is so misleading. Because cultural, I would say societal issues. Society where maybe there's a stigma, seeking help, but that's all on you, honestly. To not do the work that is required for you to get better. Yeah, how? Yes, olila unelo trap. And maybe olila unelo bhlaba or tamala unelo bhlaba, maybe they had their issues and those issues have impacted you and have led to be the broken individual that you are now. What are you doing about it? You, wenzani? It's your life again. So you must be accountable. You see, people don't want to be accountable. Don't want to sit and look in the mirror and go, as it, and then you look at why and you're like, okay, because maybe so. How do I fix this? Versus going, because. No, but then why are you ignoring uya better? Go better way. Akbeti oledi, akbeti time asak better way na man. So must we continue to suffer because when you suffer? No. Accountability. And accountability, when you refuse to take accountability, you will not grow. Yes, it's tough being accountable. It's easier to just blame other people. But in the long run, you're more miserable. Because lama jive, olibeluenza, our paid. Because when you are making excuses versus doing what's needed. So let's go back to me and the drinking. In order for me, we didn't decide I was like, yes. So I would wake up and I would deal with anxiety. Over and above the physical hangover, there would be a mental thing where I'm anxious. What did I do? What didn't I do? Things that I needed to do. And I said, but Melusi, we are born ukuthi ispinza esenza didi. So I had to admit, Twala is not for me. Bungihlulile, buwinile, ngiyabiyeka mina. Uyangithola? Not to good, but because no, mina. Ngenza amajiva 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mangiphuzile, and I don't do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 the things that I need to do. How do I get better? Not to good, you know what? And also the external things that are happening to you, zikon. But when I win that, for instance, right? There's nothing you and I can do about unemployment. There's nothing we can do. So are you going to sit here and complain about unemployment? Or are you going to say, how do I fortify myself against the stresses of being unemployed? How do I work on me? There's the option of religion, going out there and dealing with your spirituality. There are ways to fortify yourself. But it can't be no complainer and the world is against you. And the interesting thing is, there are no things that are happening for you or against you. Things are happening. Things are just happening. And most of the things that are happening have nothing to do with you. You choose to take them the way that you choose to take them. Things are happening. There's no man, no fetu. If this tree fell and landed on me, the tree fell. It had nothing to do with me.
Exactly.
Right? Now my family, hey, Melusi Tshabalala, hey, Tshabalala, Sumden, the tree fact.
There must be a story somewhere.
There are no stories, right? So, and the point I'm making is if you don't work on yourself and you fortify yourself, you will always think things are happening for you or things are happening against you. And those two things are equal in their damaging nature, right? So if good things are happening and you don't understand your role in them, right, where you're just thinking in enchant, that's not good. Right, because the day something bad happens, you don't know how to get back to the good things because you never worked out how you're achieving the good things. And when the bad things are happening and you keep saying in a party, that's not good because you're not working out what role you are playing in those bad things happening.
Yeah, and that's accountability right there.
Accountability, right there.
Man. But it takes a lot of, I guess, being humble to get to that point, right?
Yeah, no, it's tough.
It's humbling, man.
It's tough, yeah. It's tough to go, Yazin. It's rough. To sit there and go, yazang you know? In fact, and I think I told you this, I crashed my car end of 2021.
Yeah.
I didn't immediately fix it. I faka go storage. Because I realized with a drinking problem. So, and I'm not the type as on Uber. As long as you know motor, so I drive a motor. It doesn't matter what you or not. And then I realized that I'm a danger to myself. I'm a danger to my children because sometimes I would drive Nabo in Puzile. I'm a danger to others. So, and I realized that at that moment I couldn't quit Ujwala. I was deep within it. So I quit a driver. So I said I will not drive. I will not have a car. Right? And then eventually I managed to quit Ujwala. And now I am going to get back to driving because I took accountability. With me, it's not somebody else. Yeah.
I love it. And now, when you're talking about accountability, there's a story we shared before we recorded here.
Yeah.
About back again the microscope on guys, right? And you're talking about accountability now. I'm thinking about guys who get cancelled or into like funny situations with women right now. And it goes back to exactly the point you're making. Well, if you know that going out there, the chances of you getting spiked or acting a certain way towards women is gonna land you in all kinds of trouble. But we're still doing it. You're still seeing guys on social media already trying to defend. No, I was trying to do this, that, and the next. But you shouldn't have got yourself in that situation in the first place. Or what? And it's a hard thing to kind of say to someone. It's not that I don't have compassion for what's going on or I don't feel sorry for you or whatever. But like, dude, it's 2023, man. If you're going to take a drunk woman to your house and do whatever, the next morning, chances of her remembering are very slim, right? And what's going to happen if that goes to social media? So there's like accountability that's also needed. I guess amongst ourselves. I don't think you're going to end well. It's unsolicited advice, but then, like you said, I'm gonna tell you once. Leave that alone. And do we do enough of that? Do we do enough of calling each other out on a situation when it happens, not after when we're thinking about it and it's like, oh, now it's too late.
Losing friends or losing people or being ostracized, right? Because we're not, because what it does sometimes happen. Every time and young Twala, this, that. So I think we should be willing to lose people. You know what I mean? If those individuals no longer align with your values, because it's about values, right? So it's not just about saving that person, because then they will do it again. It's about showing each other why living a certain way is not the way to go. It's not just about today. It's about an approach to life. It's about value systems. And when it eventually gets to a point where you're like, okay, I can't be with you, man. And that's fine. You know what I mean? It really is okay to walk away.
Because as a blind loyalty. that keeps us in like circles
it
that
is.
they don't need us anymore, right? There's
Yes.
no need for us to keep certain friendships.
How are you going to learn if money, let's say you've known each other since you were 15 and no new ideas, no new thinking. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not a fan of not making, even if they're not friends, it's just new people coming into your world. And that's what I love about social media, right? Where, you post something and then someone will come with a completely different view that blows your mind. Do you know what I mean? And that's what's important, meeting new people. But in terms of walking away, until you know who you are, and I'm going to go back where I started, until you've dealt with you will pander to people. You'll be scared to lose people because you defined yourself, Kabatuba. Who am I without Botepo? Who am I without Mangma? But if you are very sure about who you are, that's not what I want for myself, and that is not what I want for people around me. And if you value this friendship as much as I value it, because I do value this friendship, you will listen to me and it's born which is solve. But if you get to a point, as is one.
Sure.
In life, as he born fun, and sharp out here. No, kubega, namin kubega. Nothing wrong.
I love it. So now let's move to parenting, man. You're a family man, and I'm inspired, man, when I see you. Like, Kanjo Vitantwana house, skirt. I think,
that thing.
So there's playfulness that you approach this with, man, and it's beautiful to see it. A lot of people are going through all kinds of problems, in co-parenting. I guess I'll call it unplanned pregnancies, then lead to like other situations that family doesn't stay together.
Yeah.
But then you managed to sort of keep things sane, so to speak, right? You managed to keep a balance in your life.
Yeah.
Would you consider getting into another marriage? Another marriage at this point? And then why I asked that, I had a guy on the platform and he said, nah, I would never. And I saw him probably 3 months ago. And he's like, hey, man. So it's happening, So things will definitely change. And I know time tells its own stories. You never know. Yeah. But it's a no for now. And how are you finding that whole co-parenting?
Look, I mean, now I've been co-parenting for over 20 years now with the one son, and at the beginning it was rough. And it was rough because of me. Right? Negile jive. It was a jive light. I think 26, 27, when my son was born, I was at the height of Pilis Marafaka.
Sure.
Rupshava, Rijantashi, Mata Jose Gaufel. And so I can sit here and I'm not going to get on a high horse. And I was a terrible partner, co-parenting partner. I would make appointments to pick up my kid and not make it. So yeah. But with time, with age, and just with working again on myself, I have become a much better dad. I've become a much parenting partner to my first ex-wife. And the thing about it, when out here, is I've also sat down with my son. And I've told him about my journey with his mother and my journey with him as well as a dad. I wasn't always there, man. And then I took a responsibility for why I wasn't there, the things I wasn't doing. And even there were times where, because we were younger, even where she and I would badmouth each other to the kid. But I think we've both done the work to fix that, because in fact, we get along pretty well now. She works in in the human resources sector and in the hospitality industry. Now she's the one helping me train the waiters and waitresses here at Gogo Magic Family Eatery, you know. So refamily, even though she and I are not in a relationship, but we refamily in that we are raising, I suppose. I don't know if we're still raising him because Damano Twara 21, you know, in that we are guiding and shaping this young man. But I've had to introspect. I had to admit who I was, what I did. And I've also, you know, we also sat down and me and his mom, we've had a session where I've apologized for how I carried myself and the things that I did. Because I knew when I looked back at that period, I knew you know. And then with the younger ones, the two younger ones, they're fortunate, or I don't know if they're fortunate. I'm fortunate in that I am raising them, co-parenting, even though their mother and I have nothing to do with each other. But I am in a much better space than when my older boy was a little kid, you know. And also that's the other thing, right? The firstborn, I think a lot of the time have a hard time because their parents are young. You know, even in this parenting thing, we grow up in it, we grow in it. So if you're a father at 25, you're not the same father at 45. So those who were not born when you were 25 get to experience a very different father because they don't know the money ona shakolo in tate, you know, the money wa kumba fire. They don't know that man. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the firstborn knows that man. But I also think it's important to apologize to our children. You know, we were talking about apologizing to our parents. I think it's important to sit our children down and give them perspective. You know, your mother and I are no longer together, or your father and I are no longer together because of X, Y, and Z. And here's what I did, you know. And you know what, Fetu, you didn't deserve the situation that you found yourself in. I am sorry, and I am trying my best to not only be, I can't fix what has passed. All I can do is try and be the best parent I can be right now.
Man. Yeah. That is powerful, man. I think we all kind of need that. I was talking to someone who I think almost every guy needs to have some kind of hardship when you grow up, you know, because I think so. I think you need to have it. And hardship, I don't mean it as like and like not have money, but kind of stuff that tests you emotionally, man. Stuff that tests you, that forces you to like kind of look outside of you know, I'm backed into a corner. Now I have to think out the box now. Of course, I have to go within. But then that's the only way you're gonna grow. I don't think. I mean, hey, we're talking now and giving, not giving advice, but people can kind of consider this like some kind of advice, right? This does something, right? It'll get you only so far. But if you actually go through it, then you're definitely gonna change. At some point, you will change. You know, you can go through it 100 times until you learn the lesson. That's what they say, right?
Yeah.
You will keep on circling around the same thing until you learn. If you don't, it will probably kill you, you know?
I mean, I hear you on how hardship can fortify us for future hardship. Right? It can fortify us against. But from what I've experienced and what I've seen, and I think people are better off not going through hardship and the traumas it's a hardship. You know what I mean? I think you're not operating from a point of fear. You're not operating from a point of mistrust. Do you know what I mean? You don't need to end up with some therapy and you know. So I think maybe creating environments where we challenge our children to think beyond just today. I think that's fine where we don't spoil our children. But saying one must go through hardship, I refuse the brother, because negative hardship. And I do not want it for my children. However, I am raising compassionate, kind, conscientious children. Yeah, but no hardship for them, no.
Man, because I say that, you know, barking in initiation, or sort of rites of passage. They're these, and it's different in different cultures or in different societies. But they will literally take these boys through, put them in a room, you know, in a dark room, baba shape, you know, just to test. Obviously, not to beat and abuse you. But that's I guess that hardship is not necessarily the hardest of things that are gonna traumatize you. But form, like you're saying, kind of
don't shelter your children too much. Yes, don't shelter your children too much. But I think maybe now I'm you know, when you say hardship, I'm looking at it at the context of a black South African, and I'm just like no. But yes, I mean that's why children must play sport.
Exactly.
You know, that teaches you. Not every child is going to go be a professional sports person, but the competition there, the challenges that you face there, they shape you. You know, yes, children should not. You should not shelter your children from tough things, right? You shouldn't do things for them. They must learn to do them for themselves. So yes, definitely there. Sure. Yeah.
Man. And now tell me about we've never actually spoken about your father, right? You don't mention your father much. Yeah, why is that?
I get a relationship later, man, whatsoever. From what I understand, he and my mother went their separate ways when I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
You know, and with hindsight, right? And it's something I was thinking about it just the other day. Where you are 19, 20, and you are being told you are dead. I mean, I don't know if Nengasi slice you know. Do you know what I mean? And the reason I bring that up, I think we are too hard on parents who failed when they were teenagers. You know what I mean? It's like even a lot of the times the mothers can't run because they are the mother. You know, but I can tell you, a lot of the mothers would have run if that was an option on the table. So it's not that men suck. It's just that they had the option to run. So my dad, he and my mom, and I ain't mad at him. You know, I'm not mad at him. I look at him like, what? I don't know how old he was. He must have been 21, 22 at the time. I'm not mad at him. And then, you know, there was a time, I think he reached out, or my mother wanted me to just meet with him. And so, Damano Udula go Natalera, go Lady Smith.
Okay.
So, you know, the one time, so, Kankal Ulidlaka, Mamnanwaka, I don't know if Kerahadi, yeah. And we drove to meet with this guy. There was a meeting, and I was already in my 30s at the time, you know. We drove, it's a long trip. Damane didn't bother showing up. You know what I mean? I was like, like now it's my weekend, you know. So, but anyway, I was like, alright, cool. You know what?
Sure.
And then there was a funeral of a family member, maybe a few years later, and my mother convinced me and spoke to him. You know, I met him, and fucked up. And I think meeting him, also made me introspect about my relationship with lesbians. You know, because I met him and I was like, I'm glad or lady never tried to make things work. And I'm glad I never had a relationship lead money, because I can't imagine what my life would be like if I had remained Ntwana Yadima. You know, I probably wouldn't be where I am now, wherever that is. So, and then from that last meeting where we actually met, not that way, didn't give a shit, like he genuinely didn't care. But Linda, I think by the time I had already hit 14, I was in my late 30s. So Linda wasn't really bothered. You know, like, I was like, okay, cool, I've met him. Anatava. And I thank God, in fact, because there was a time he asked me for money. I was like, this man was dead. You haven't seen me for 30-something years, and the first thing you're going to do is ask me for money, So that's why I don't talk about him. I don't have a relationship with him. I mean, I do think about my kids, maybe reconnecting with that side of the family for Bona.
Sure.
And I'm sure I've also got siblings from that side and other relatives. But at the same time, whatever, man, and it's not from a place of beef. It's just from a place of ahuna spacey in my life for him. Just as there's his life continues, my life continues, and I honor the person who raised me through all those hardships. Obviously, saying Ali 1-1 because she had sisters.
Sure.
But yeah, so I'm not about it. And you're not just umuntu,
Sure.
And I mean, sometimes I go, I want to feel like time I'll and then I carry on with my life.
Man.
Yeah.
Man, that's a touching story, and it's kind of similar to mine, right? Because I met mine at 21.
Okay.
And the weird thing with my dad is I knew his whole family, but I never knew him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he reached out a few times, and then eventually we met. And then, after meeting him, I was like, oh, little time, my life. No excitement. Like, okay, no sharp. But then he tried calling me over the years. But then I was just like, man, I saw this guy, sharp guy.
Yeah.
But he passed away a couple of years, like just after COVID. So probably 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And man, I felt some sense of regret.
I can tell
It's like, man, I should have, at least tried just to get to know him a little bit, get to know some stories. But I also say, as much as I say I didn't have a father who raised me, I honor men, so we call them social fathers or role models or whatever, that helped me along my journey.
Yeah.
So do you have people like that you can remember who kind of helped you shape who Melusi is today? Or
Men.
It's women only.
Yeah, no. It would be some male teachers.
Sure.
Look, I'm from a long line of Majita fucked up. Seriously, like, when I think about the men in my family, so and funny enough, if I'm being honest, it did shape me in the way I lived earlier in my life.
Sure.
I had this idea, good to know outie, this and that and that and that. So men in my life shaped me in that way. But like when I think about the forces that shaped me, no, there's no one man or a set of men that stand out. No.
Man.
Yeah.
Man. And Lareko from Heartlines, man, and shout out to Lareko. We did an episode on Fathers Matter, and he said, it's crazy how we've normalized guys who've made it without fathers, because it's such a thing. Like, no, in fact, you made it without a father. Well, congratulations to you.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be that way.
No, with any parent, it shouldn't be that way, right? But in most cases, it's without a father. No, it shouldn't be. However, there are people whose lives were made even worse because the father was there. So I think this idea a particular parent needs to be there. If nonsense, like if the mom is crap, the mom must be gone. You know what I mean? So it can't be like, no, you must be raised by your mother. No. You must be raised by people that love you, care for you, and help you become a decent, contributing human being.
Man.
Right, yeah. And if being raised without a dad or a mom or whatever, you still turned out ushapu or contributor more society, umuto shapu, then king, you guys jive,
Sure. I love it, Melusi, man. So now, about this book, man, where do people buy these books? How can they access them?
These books, man, they are available here at Gogo Magic Family Eatery. And also online on my website, which is everydayspeak.co.za. But I self-published these ones, so I'm in complete control. So they're not like my first two books, the ones for adults, which were published by major publishers, and I'm working on a third book now. But yeah,
man. Hey, now I think you stopping drinking has now added another sort of layer to you, huh?
no, not really. I mean, there's nothing encha no since I've stopped drinking that I wasn't doing before, right?
Sure.
The Gogo Magic Family Eatery concept was launched while I was still a drinker.
Yeah.
The first book in that series
yeah.
was written while I was still a drinker. I think the new thing, there is one new thing in my life. Because now I wake up feeling like a human being. Because now I maybe 6-7 days a week. So every morning, hangover gets a mawaza. You know. So now, and the worst part is that I'm a morning person.
Sure.
So I wasn't the type that would sleep in and work through the hangover. I would wake up, I'd feel miserable, and the only way to solve it is to drink some more. Right. Now that I've got time on my hands in the mornings and I am alive, I've taken up swimming lessons.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
I've taken up swimming lessons. I'm learning how to swim. It's been 3 months,
Sure.
I think. And yeah, so I've decided to fill my time ka things.
I love that.
After swimming, once I've mastered swimming, it's a very difficult thing. Swimming.
But what are you like swimming in those Olympic size swimming pools or just like
I'm going for lessons in with Nalchiriangam Lada. Any young fundis about you know, hey,
so hono float at least, you know.
No. So no floating. Must learn to swim because it take you to float in when so I swim I'm hey. And then once I've mastered swimming, I want to master riding a bike. I can ride a bike.
Come on.
But no, I can ride a bike.
Yeah.
But not confidently.
Okay.
As in I can't go on the road subapline. Yeah. I never had a bike. I've never owned a bike in my entire life.
Come on, man.
What do you mean?
Let me be your trainer, man. We've got a cyclist right here.
I was on police. I've never owned a bike. My mom couldn't afford. You know what I mean? So it's that thing. So like I have never owned a bike. So the bikes that I've ridden, the bike got me.
Sure.
But it's like I'm just like for me, it's not even about the bike. It's the confidence to be on the road and riding this thing. So yeah, even the swimming, right?
Sure.
I don't see myself in having swimmer, no. But just to know what I can if need be.
Sure.
Ne bike. If I want to be in a position where if I ever find myself in a situation where I need to ride somewhere, it shouldn't be a challenge.
Man. Well, I would challenge you to take that on because it's that's a beautiful activity, man. You get to see places in a very different light. Because
yeah, I walk a lot, so I see places in a different
okay,
light.
You're a walker.
Yeah.
Okay. But you can go a lot further on a bike.
No, look, like I'm saying, like I'm a biker, I am teen. So so I don't want to be lenting denial, but I want to have the ability to do it. Like so no, I'm never going to labeling I never done.
Come on, man. We want to organize a ride here. Magenge, we need to ride. Come on. Man, but Melusi, I always appreciate talking to you, man.
No, sure.
When is this next book? Have you started on it?
I have started. No, there's no date.
Okay.
There's no date as yet. Yeah. So because I was hoping to have finished it already, but because I've got so much going on, the writing is suffering.
Sure.
You know, but I really want to get back into it.
Okay.
And it's also like my first book, Melusi's Everyday Zulu. It's a language book. But this time around, I'm not dealing with Zulu. I'm dealing with South African languages and how we interact with each other across our various languages and our various cultures and just our understanding of life as different groupings in this country. Again, it's also a humorous book. Yeah.
Man. Okay, man, I'm looking forward to that.
No. I'll let you know once it's published.
All right, man.
All right.
So I've got one more question for you. And it's a random one, but I want to ask it anyway.
Okay.
And I've asked on I try to remember it as much as I can.
Okay.
But if there's one thing men can do for each other, or just for a friend of yours, just to build better bonds with each other. Because, hey, man, there's our friendships are not, I won't call them, and not for everyone, but for some people I've spoken to, on average, is friendships are much man. As we grow up, they become a very wishy-washy.
They definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, when I lose friendships, a little later today, we're going to have lunch. It's going to be the first time, I think, in over a decade.
Wow.
Riploma together. Sure. Whereas those skim saka, if only skim saka mo living, it's those guys.
Sure.
But together, are so blow me in over a decade because of those things. And we I think we spoke about it even before. It was also nertaban,
Sure.
because we lead each other astray.
Yeah, no.
It's motherfucker, But because it's really routiniana, we're like, okay,
Sure.
Yeah. But in terms of what can we do for Majita, man, I'm gonna go back to something that I spoke about earlier. I think if we can just hold each other accountable, and not let each other get away with bullshit, so I'm born to get a jive,
Sure.
you know what I mean?
Sure.
Whether I take it or not is a different thing. But you know what? Because it came from you, at that moment and walk away. But I get one sitting there, like, and I'm not, I'm not speaking in relation to gender-based violence,
Sure.
everything,
Sure.
spanning, spins, gender relations as well, parenting, just to tell you out, especially sometimes Majita nalo tell a story, and he thinks stories is sarcasm, and you're sitting there. You shouldn't just go, you should say, no, do you get what I'm saying? You should be able to say, no, my bro. That's not cool.
Man.
And, should be able to tell Brian or the way you're living,
I see you.
Sure. Yeah,
Sure.
no, that's not it,
Man.
But also, we should allow our friends to change. Right? Yeah, we should allow our friends to change. Sometimes, when you want to go a different path, but right now we're holding you back.
Sure.
We should allow our friends to change without losing each other. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I can be grateful within Majita Ekibuangaona, so we haven't said as a collective Mararabonana individually,
Sure.
that we've all grown into very different human beings. And no one is putting anyone under. Like a few of us don't drink now, even though Nerili schemes are yonki into boy. And for me, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Ishapela Heineken Zero Yaka, Mzala Itwareti Tequila Zahare, and it's not a conversation.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man.
So accountability, but also allowing people to change.
Give people some grace. I love it, man. Yeah. Well, guys, it's been another. I think this is episode 50, I think.
So, I have no idea.
I think we're on episode 50. So
wow.
I'm grateful to be with, this has given me, I guess, like you say, man, it's forced me to also look at myself differently. Because I can imagine doing this. I want to change the world. I want to stop GBV. No, I just said I want to have conversations and it's forming its own world and its own life, and it's impacting in very different ways.
No, sure.
But of course, man, for also welcoming me into your spot. I appreciate it. I'm gonna grab some food as well.
Yeah, grab food, man.
Come through to Gogo Magic. I'm actually gonna shoot some stuff here.
Do that, please do. Yeah.
Video. Yeah. Right, man. So peace and love, guys. It's been another exciting episode of Man Up Conversations. Le awitu wa Magenge, Melusi Tshabalala. We'll catch you guys on the flip, man. Peace.
All right. Ta.